What's up? What's going on? What's good, everybody? That's right. The Boxing Source here checking in on this October 29th, 2023 podcast for the Boxing Source. You know, we got a few things here that we're going to be talking about in reference to this weekend's action. You know, we had a number of things going down, man. And of course, here we are. It's pretty much been a full 24 hours or so since the big, fallout from what happened in Riyadh season. Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou, man. And yeah, I did have a rapid reaction to the fight yesterday, but I wanted to extend on this and kind of get more of what was going down, after that fight, and it's still like crazy because you had a lot of people reacting to that particular result in reference to the sport of boxing overall, and the performance from Tyson Fury, and so it was pretty much like, oh my goodness, look at what Tyson Fury was doing here in this fight against Francis Ngannou. It looked like he was, taking this thing too easy, was on easy street. He had the whole thing with the show with his family, that he wasn't really preparing for this bout against Francis Ngannou and thought that he could just walk in there and just get the win, basically. Easy work, easy win, and everything like that. But as we've seen, that was not, it was definitely not easy there for Tyson Fury. And, you talk about a shocking moment. It was when Tyson Fury got knocked down by Francis Ngannou in the third round. But, it was just something where you kind of like seen it to be, it was Tyson Fury being Tyson Fury. And what I mean by that is Tyson Fury, you could say, okay, he's undefeated. He, could have some of the best skills, out there in boxing, or particularly the heavyweight division. But there are multiple times where he gets into his own way and where he kind of like allows things to happen that shouldn't really happen. And in that third round, that's what pretty much went down, was that he had Francis Ngannou pretty much in range to do what he could do. I mean, come on, Tyson Fury is the taller fighter. He's the fighter with the longer range. He's the guy that, could have, jabbed his way to an easy decision if he wanted to. Or he could have just, did things here and there to make it really difficult for Francis Ngannou. I mean, this is Francis Ngannou's first professional fight. I'm like, come on, the first professional fight against the WBC and lineal heavyweight champion. And he was able to have this type of performance in a 10-round bout. It wasn't a 6-round bout. It wasn't an 8-round bout. It was a 10-round bout. And shoot, with Fury being the WBC champion, you were thinking about having this as a 12-round bout, but of course it couldn't be a 12-round bout. You couldn't have Francis Ngannou in his professional debut fight for a world title. He couldn't fight for a world title. So they made it 10 rounds. They were able to, prove it for 10 rounds. And, it was just something where it was like, after those first couple of rounds, it just looked like Francis Ngannou just said, you know what? I could take some of these shots, man. I could take some of these shots. Or, I could see what Tyson Fury is doing and try to, adjust to that and get away from the brunt of those punches and go right back at him. And that's pretty much what he did. He did his thing. He was able to perform the way that he performed in that particular bout, man. And it just ended up being something where the world basically was surprised at what happened. We didn't necessarily expect something like this to go down here in this instance, man. And so you had that third round knockdown scored by Francis Ngannou, and everything just changed from that point, because after that, it was basically Tyson Fury having to catch up, having to gain an extra round, or being able to do, some things that could, make him have some serious momentum in this bout. And he wasn't able to do that over the course of the 10 rounds. He was able to win rounds, but he wasn't able to, really, get that momentum back after being knocked down. And that's why when it went 10 rounds and it went to the decision, it had to be more than, than 5 rounds that Tyson Fury had to win in order to win, basically win the scorecards. Now, 2 judges were able to do that. They were able to award him, 2 scores, basically. Now, one judge, it looks like, gave Tyson Fury 7 of those 10 rounds. 7 of those 10 rounds. And another judge gave him 6 of those 10 rounds, to where he was able to get the split decision win over Francis Ngannou. But for Francis Ngannou to, number one, win 5 rounds and be able to score the knockdown, that's wild. Shout out to, Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz and More. Big ups to you. Salute to you, man. Y'all be sure to check him out here on YouTube. I know that, Bruce definitely has, a lot to say about what happened last night over in Riyadh. But, like I said, man, I mean, you had, Tyson Fury, it just looked like he was lollygagging all the way up to this particular point of this fight. He came in there at his heaviest, didn't look like he was training or sharp or anything like that. You seen it over the course of the fight, like he wasn't really that sharp. Only thing was, like, outside of the jab, maybe he wasn't really sharp. And I say, at least from the first half of the fight, he was very, very inaccurate with the 1-2. Especially when he was in an orthodox stance, he was inaccurate with the 1-2 punch. And so, what that meant was, it was like, you mean you couldn't even do things to set up someone like Francis Ngannou? You couldn't bait him. You couldn't mix up the jab. You couldn't, throw a feint and then trick him. He didn't do any of that. It was funny because it looked like Francis Ngannou was the guy that was more of a boxer than Tyson Fury was. That was the wildest part about it. It just looked like Francis Ngannou was the one that looked like he was more in tune with boxing than Tyson Fury was. And it wasn't just, from an offensive standpoint. It was from a defensive standpoint. It was from, stances. It was from how he was able to switch from orthodox to southpaw and be able to keep his lead foot on the outside of Tyson Fury. That was just some things that you wouldn't have expected from someone in Francis Ngannou that is in his first professional fight. No experience in a boxing ring like that, nothing like that. But just having, the training that he's had, over the, past few months, getting himself ready to fight Tyson Fury. And, that's what he got. And we saw, those videos there from Francis Ngannou when he was working with Mike Tyson, when he was working with Dewey Cooper and other, folks there, while preparing for this bout. It didn't look one bit like he was, technically ready for something like this, but outside of that, it was just crazy. But hold on. I had to look at something real quick. No, I was just looking at my fantasy team, man. I won the fantasy team, man. I'm leading the division. I'm hyped. I'm leading the division. I'm all good. I'm ready for the playoffs. Well, the playoffs ain't started yet for that, but at least I'm leading the division, man. I'm rolling. Back to this whole thing, man. Francis Ngannou, they're coming from, of course, UFC, heavyweight champion and all of that. hadn't really been in combat sports for what? It's been a couple years since he's been in combat sports. And then he was able to, position himself to be put in a fight against the WBC and lineal heavyweight champion in boxing in a 10-round bout. And he was able to, knock down Tyson Fury, have him have a cut, and it looked like, Tyson Fury had a spot under his eye. That was wild, man. That was wild. And some people, or at least you've seen here over the past few hours, man, it said, man, this is a robbery. Francis Ngannou should have won the fight. They pretty much had it in for him. Like you said, man, one of those scores was 7 rounds to 3 in favor of Tyson Fury. Now, did we see 7 rounds that Fury won? Who knows? But like I said, he needed to win 6 of those 10 rounds in order to have an advantage in the scorecards. You couldn't win 5 rounds because it would have been 95-94 in favor of Francis Ngannou with that knockdown score. But hey, two judges gave him at least 6 rounds, so that's why you had a split decision win there for him. And that was just the wildest thing, man. It was definitely the wildest thing that he was able to do that. That was crazy. That was crazy that he was able to do it, because I'm like this, right? I did not think for one moment that Francis Ngannou would have been able to do what he was able to do here in this bout. I wasn't. Think about it was like, hey, you had 10 rounds, 1 minute intervals, that type of thing. You would think, okay, he would be tired. Y'all go back to, what happened with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, did what he did in those first few rounds, but then he got really tired. And then after he got tired, that's when Floyd, kind of turned it up on him and was able to stop him, But here, Francis Ngannou was able to get through 10 rounds. And, props to him for that. But also, it goes on to Tyson Fury, because you would think that, hey, this guy has not been, able to experience something like this. So let me go ahead and see if I can get him into those latter rounds and then turn it up in those latter rounds. And you really didn't see him do that. And that's what made that fight, as close as it was, man. You can't be able to have someone like Francis Ngannou, who's that inexperienced in boxing, be able to get to that particular point and you not basically take it over. Because listen, in those last few rounds, anyone could have gotten those last few rounds. You really didn't see that much action in those last few rounds, at least for me. You know what I'm saying? Francis, had a couple of times where he was, throwing some punches up in close quarters and moving around Tyson Fury, which was another thing that I guess, we didn't necessarily expect for him to move around Tyson Fury like that. But the thing about it is, hey, this guy is 6'4". He was listed at 6'4", 272 pounds. 6'4", 272. Tyson Fury was 277 at 6'9", but you see that, of course, we know about that, 6'9", 277, flubber here, flubber there, Love handles this and that. And Francis Ngannou was a solid 272, that's as far as that gonna go. All right. But you seem like in close quarters, usually with Tyson Fury, he's able to lean on his opponents. He's able to wear down his opponents, with that extra weight, kind of tire them down or tire them out. He couldn't really do that against Francis Ngannou, because Francis Ngannou was, using that, lower body strength to push around Tyson Fury. Like he couldn't He couldn't move Francis Ngannou like he was moving, these other fighters, like he was moving Dylan White or, Deontay Wilder, or Derek Chisora of all people, right? Like he couldn't do that on Francis Ngannou. And that's the thing that Timothy Bradley was saying. Like, hey, this ain't Deontay Wilder. Like, this ain't a guy that doesn't have that much weight in his legs or that much leg strength behind him. This is somebody that's solid, there, with his strength. And so, with that being said, that's why you couldn't really have Tyson Fury wear down Francis Ngannou like he was wearing down, all of his other opponents. And that was key there in those last few rounds. Even though both fighters looked like they were tired, it was something where, Tyson Fury really couldn't, increase his offensive activity in order to, stand out. It was basically the jab that was the only thing that was working for him consistently over those 10 rounds. Everything else, it wasn't going for him. It was not going for him. For me, they had something where, the punch stats for, this particular fight, right? That Ngannou was, almost at 40% landing total in power shots. At one point, it ended up being 31% or 32%, according to CompuBox. But there was like at one point he was, landing, really, really good in those power shots. Like in those first 4 rounds, he did not, have anything lower than 33% punches landed. You know what I'm saying? Juice in the building. What's going on with you? Juice, what's going on with you? Shout out to you, man. And the thing about it is, man, it was like Ngannou was, able to execute what he was able to do early in this fight, and he just was able to throw. He ended up throwing more punches than Tyson Fury, according to CompuBox statistics, and landed more power shots. But it was just the jabs from Tyson Fury. 39 jabs landed out of 137 for 28%. Yeah, I'm still like kind of thrown off about this, man. It was like, this is crazy. You mean to tell me that you could only, land, what you're able to land there, 28%, on Francis Ngannou. It was something where, either, Francis was, putting up his hands or, like I said, switching stances from orthodox to southpaw, mixing things up. Or, and this was the thing that kind of like, at least early in the fight led to the knockdown, and kind of like the couple of rounds after, was that when Fury was throwing, Ngannou was throwing back. Like Ngannou, he was, saying, hey, you know what? If he's going to be able to land, I got to be able to throw, at least be able to throw. Because if I throw and I'm able to land something, maybe I'm able to cash in and get the most out of it. And that's how, at least for me, that's how he was able to score that knockdown in the 3rd round, was because he was able to be, close enough quarters where if Fury threw, that means I could throw too. You know what I'm saying? And once he was able to land that shot, pretty much at the top, the top of the temple there on Tyson Fury and knock him down, that was pretty much it, man. That was pretty much it. That was the wildest thing though, because Tyson Fury only landed, according to CompuBox, one punch, in that 3rd round, just one punch. That is crazy. That's wild. And then after that, he ended up throwing or landed at a higher percentage. But surprisingly, man, like I said, I mean, Francis Ngannou was able to throw more punches over the course of the 10 rounds than Tyson Fury. That was the wildest part. Even in the 8th round, actually, he threw 39 total punches in that eighth round. That's crazy. He was able to. Yeah, man. I don't know, man. That was just the wildest thing, though. I just didn't really expect Francis Ngannou to be able to perform the way that he performed in this particular bout. And it looks like, I'm checking out the punch stats, man. I would say, well, yeah, what is that? 231. So about 23 punches on average, through those 10 rounds. Like, 23 to 22, in favor of Francis Ngannou as far as like total punches thrown. So he had a little bit more activity in this. And, for me, from the so-called tail of the tape, before this bout, right? You would have thought that Tyson Fury would have had, all the measurables, so to speak, the advantages there over Francis Ngannou, of course, with the height, but also with the reach. But the thing about it with the reach was, they said that Francis Ngannou, had a reach of what, like 83, a reach of 83. So it wasn't like that much of a difference to where, he could be able to just be at a good little distance where Tyson Fury could just flick the jab, and keep flicking the jab, and he would have been able to have the advantage like that. It didn't show that in this fight, man. Didn't show in this fight at all. Ngannou was able to deal with all that and be able to throw back. He was able to throw back, and that was the kind of thing that I just was surprised about. You really didn't have that much of a difference, I'd say, round by round as far as like punch activity from both of these fighters. Like I said, it was that close for an average of 23 punches around for Francis Ngannou and 22 punches around for Tyson Fury, to where it was just like everything that landed pretty much had to counter or whatever it was, man. But for Francis Ngannou to get that close to winning a bout against Tyson Fury is the wildest thing. And it just created a firestorm and a reaction. We've heard from, or we've seen stuff from LeBron James, Damian Lillard, and other fighters like Canelo Alvarez, or that type of thing, man. And of course, those from the MMA side, they've been going nuts. They've been going absolutely nuts. It's been wild. But before I go into this a little bit more, I wanted to add in one of our great guests here on the Boxing Source. He was trying to get in yesterday, but wasn't able to. But he's able to chime in on that fight right now, and that is the Boxing Academic. What's happening, man?
Not much.
Doing well, man. Doing well. Just still, saying, hey, man, this was wild. It was wild. It was wild to see what I saw yesterday, man. I just didn't expect it at all, even with the condition of Tyson Fury. But I know that you had a lot to say in reference to this, so you'll give your analysis on what went down.
Yeah. So obviously, going into the fight, I didn't give the fight much of my, and I treated it as if it was talking about Terrence Crawford in the lead up to the Crawford Spence fight. A lot of stuff before they actually signed and before they actually said they was gonna fight. It was like, why even give it your attention? I'm relating that to this, in that going into the fight with Tyson Fury being the guy who he is, with him being able to lean on people and to be able to all people in the sense, on the and I expect that to happen in this fight. I expect for Ngannou to not be as educated as he was, and even a part of the education was probably on as well. He didn't put himself in a position to where he would get. He allowed Tyson Fury to counter, and the guy was very responsive. Definitely in the beginning of the fight, before he got tired, at least he was very responsive, and then you could see his ability to fight on the inside. I ain't saying he was no Terrence Crawford or no Andre Ward, but what I am saying is that the move where he got space with his elbow, then he threw that Superman uppercut and almost hit Tyson Fury with it, and then Tyson Fury was like, "Oh," and he literally, showed Fury that, "Hey, man, I'm a big." The man, his attributes are what helped him. Obviously, he was strong as an ox, and so Tyson Fury wanted to lean on him, wanted to mix it up. You could see in round 2, 3, or 4, whatever round it was, when Tyson Fury kind of got away from going on the outside, and then he started trying to put his head, on Ngannou's chest or in his stomach, and I asked the chat, I was like, is Tyson Fury trying to like tackle this man, But what he was trying to do, which was what he's done to other people with other people, to put pressure, to lean on him, to see how he sort of responds in fighting on the inside. And so I'm gonna use Deontay Wilder on this example. And the thing is, if Wilder was just better at a few other things, I ain't gonna say he would be unstoppable, but it would be much more tougher to defeat him than it is now. Wilder had some things that obviously make him tough to defeat, which obviously is his right hand. But I'm saying if Wilder was able to control distance and see punches coming on the inside versus sort of just sitting there and just leaving himself sort of hanging in a bit, similar. I mean, unlike how Ngannou did. Ngannou was in on the inside. His eyes were wide open. He was able to use his elbow to get enough space. He was able to put it in Fury's shoulder when he didn't want space, and then he was able to give himself that space to throw shots. I don't know. I think that, along with hand fighting, which was the major thing which quailed Tyson Fury. Some people say they don't see this or they don't believe this, but in the fights with Deontay Wilder, I ain't trying to make this no Deontay Wilder show, but I'm just, simply using compare. In the fights with Deontay Wilder, with Tyson Fury.
Hold on, what you saying? Now it looks like you were going in and out.
Okay, what about now?
Seems good now.
Yeah, so the times when Deontay Wilder and Fury would fight, the times when Wilder would have success, he would keep Tyson Fury engaged or occupied with his hand fighting, and then Fury would have to, use other tactics to try to get in on him. You can still hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so all I'm saying is when Wilder goes away from the hand fighting with keeping Tyson Fury busy, Fury can come in on him, use the inside, because, obviously compared to Wilder, Fury is a better inside fighter. But him, even with Luis Ortiz, the hand fighting is what helped him. And so that is probably the major thing which allowed Ngannou to keep Tyson Fury sort of occupied or wondering, what can I do to get to him? Because Fury is a totally different fighter when people do that to him. And I was trying to tell it to the chat yesterday about how Fury, I ain't gonna say he looked average, but he looks like a totally different fighter. In that first fight, Deontay Wilder was using hand fighting a lot, which is what allowed him to get into round 12 until Fury changed the tactic and started getting in close on him. And then that's when he realized, oh, this is how I beat this guy. And Ngannou did a few things right. I have a lot of respect for him. Obviously he's educated when it comes to, like Tim Bradley said, he's a fighter, and he has instinct and just the ability to fight, and then combine that with his ox-like strength. That's a tough matchup for a guy who normally leans on people and who normally is able to out sort of slick people. Ngannou, I ain't gonna say he the slickest thing in the world, but he had enough slickness. Like some of them punches, like even the it's crazy how these sports translate, and you could see a lot of moves that he would do, which would translate into him being able to throw punches off of like weird angles, and that type of stuff right there is what allowed him to cause Fury so many problems because keep his balance and then throw distance, control space, and still throw punches. I'm gonna let you have it. But yeah, I was very impressed, and got a lot of respect for him. I mean, he would give people problems, but I don't think he really got hit. So it would be interesting to see if Ngannou got hit by somebody for real, how he would respond. Now his defense was pretty good. Like he had hand fighting was his major defense. That's what allowed him not to get occupied. But it would be fun. Anybody getting hit by a heavyweight is gonna respond not well.
Yeah, oh yeah. But you were talking about the whole thing with the inside fighting. And yeah, I was like, surprised with the inside fighting that, Francis Ngannou was able to do. But, it also is attributed to, his, overall stature, being there like, 6'4", 6'5", 272, and not being able to be moved around by Tyson Fury. Because with, Tyson Fury, like I said earlier, he likes to lean on his opponents. But the thing about it is, too, is that he kind of like gives himself up by doing that because he is relying on having the opponent be able to carry the weight that he has coming forward. Now, when you lean forward like that against a fighter, especially against one that can move very well, that will make you all balanced. And if you get hit or clipped, with an all shot, that could, turn you all balanced. And, for me, and you did bring up the fight with Deontay Wilder, or the fights with Deontay Wilder. In the third fight, you kind of like seen the same situation or a similar situation when Fury got knocked down, right? Because when in the first knockdown, Fury was backing Wilder up, but he was still, trying to, do his thing where he punches forward and leans forward. The only thing was at the first one, Deontay Wilder was able to throw that right hand and land, and then when he landed, it kind of like threw off the equilibrium of Tyson Fury. So while he was still trying to think about getting in and leaning on him, he couldn't really do that, and he was off balance, and that's what put him down to the canvas. And in the second knockdown, that was in close quarters where you pretty much had Wilder land a short hook basically, and Fury was still trying to grab again, but he just couldn't get grip on Deontay Wilder and ended up being down on the canvas again. And so what you've seen here against Francis Ngannou was pretty much around that same situation where he was going to try to do that type of thing, but he just ended up getting hit with a short hook, and that messed up his equilibrium and put him back, and he went down to the canvas. So those type of things that he's used to doing, it kind of like gets him in trouble. Like we've seen him being knocked down multiple times because he's kind of he's still aloof. He's still off balance as far as like moving around with his frame. So that's what kind of like had that third round knockdown take place, was that Fury always has that habit of leaning forward and being off balance at times, and that kind of like messes up his footwork and gets him in trouble. So that kind of like was something that he usually relies on, but he couldn't get away with that against Francis Ngannou here because Francis Ngannou doesn't really get moved around like that. And also, as you mentioned, with the inside fighting, you've seen it, there in the third round. And I think there was like another round where it almost seemed like he had Fury in trouble again, with throwing a lot of punches, because he just wouldn't allow Tyson Fury to lean on him and try to tie him up. So he would push him around. He would lean on or try to, maneuver him and swing him around, but also throw punches. And that's what kind of like made, this particular fight in general be as close as it was, because he just wouldn't allow Tyson Fury to do Tyson Fury things. That was pretty much the gist of it. And for me, it was just about what was going to happen from rounds 8 or 7, 8, 9, and 10, because regardless of what was happening in that first half of the fight, I pretty much knew that like Tyson Fury had to win the majority of those last few rounds in order for him to, win this particular fight. And so that was pretty much what happened. It was that he ended up getting the benefit there as far as like the tail end of that fight. So let's see. I mean, for me, it was like what it was. A number of these judges had like disagreed on some of these rounds, but other than that, you had like Tyson Fury winning a majority of rounds 4, 5, 6, and I think 7 was like what a majority of these judges kind of like give him. Either like I think it was like 5 they clearly gave to him, 6 they clearly gave to him, and actually round 9 they clearly gave to him. But outside of that, you really had some disagreements as far as like the scorecards were concerned. But I mean, a number of the fight fans were like saying, "Hey, man, it shouldn't have even been that close."
So, one problem that I noticed with Fury a while ago, but no one has took advantage of it, because it seemed like Wilder regressed at some point, but now he's getting back better again. Like, he, in order to go forward, sometimes you got to take a few steps back. But back to the hand fighting, when in that first fight, when Wilder was hand fighting Fury, and then I'm throwing in the feinting with the hand fighting as well too. Fury would, do the look. He always try to like lean down and lean down to the left and lean down to the right, and how he would do the little jerky motions. But then and then he'll like always rub his nose, like rub that the white stuff off his nose. And then so when you do the hand fighting, Fury makes a move, and then after he makes that move, you're able to hit him, because he always, he does this repeatable pattern where you occupy him, and then he does the little repeatable pattern. He go to the left first, and he go back to the right, and then you're able to hit him. That's something that's a problem with him, that people have to take advantage of.
Mm. Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing was like, at least, in the first fight with Deontay Wilder, he kind of like did something where he would like either throw a punch or, do a feint and then like kind of duck down or, duck off to the side. And so, in that first particular fight with Wilder, he kind of like made the adjustment and seeing that if he's ducking down, all I have to do is just go, throw down or throw an uppercut, and I'll be able to land on him. And so, that's pretty much like how he was able to score the 2 knockdowns in that first fight. But yeah, Fury still is doing those same things. So, a fighter with like an uppercut or a sharp uppercut will really be able to do some damage on Tyson Fury, here. And that's something that, I kind of like would want to see, coming from, his opponents out there, you know what I'm saying? If they're able to do that. But, at least for me, I haven't really seen, a number of his opponents kind of like do that, be able to use that uppercut and use that as a serious weapon there against Tyson Fury, because I just feel like he's open for that. I feel like he's open for that uppercut. And you've seen in there, in this fight with Ngannou in close quarters, like even Ngannou was using that uppercut, man. He was using that uppercut, but none of the uppercuts landed flush, but he was able to get in with the uppercut. And so it was like, man, this was like really, really something there really close that he was able to do, man. But after all of this, you kind of like seeing, a lot of people be surprised about it. Francis Ngannou was, really pumped as far as like what happened there, as far as like the result or whatever it was. And, we kind of was, really reacting to, what was going on in that, in that exchange between him and Tyson Fury. He had what is it like a reaction thing, like not that soon. Afterwards, I'm gonna see if I could run this here. This is on Francis Ngannou's Twitter page, man, and this was part of his interview. This is what he said.
When the fight started, one thing, when we get closer and then when we touch gloves, I'm like, let me take you to school. I'm like, you motherfucker, you are not taking me to school. That's why, like, when I knock him down, I was dancing in front, like, you're a bad professor, motherfucker. Like, you're a bad professor. Like, how is that school going? Who is taking who to school? Because for me, it looks like I'm the one taking you to school.
That was just wild, yo. That was just wild. He's like, you're a bad professor, motherfucker. I was like, oh my God, this guy's here. He's like talking trash and all this type of stuff after this fight, man. Yo, it's just the wildest thing, man. He's like, oh, you motherfucker, you not taking me to school. I was like, so that's why he was like he was taunting Fury after that knockdown. He said, yeah, who's the one going to school, motherfucker? I was like, oh my God, yo. Yeah, that was wild, man. That was just absolutely wild that Ngannou was able to do those type of things there, man. I guess you could give props to Dewey Cooper and the whole team there that was working with Francis Ngannou over the course of this. Now I know some people probably bring up the whole thing that was going on with Tyson Fury. Over the past few months where he might not have been in camp that, all too much or all too tough or anything like that. But still, you got to be able to say, hey, man, I'm the boxer. I'm the guy that's supposed to go in here and take this guy, to the cleaners. I was going to say take this guy to school. But, like Ngannou
yeah, bad teacher.
He's like, you motherfucker.
But about that though, the thing that quelled Tyson Fury so much was Ngannou's power, and that was evident early, to where he had to be very respectful, and that's outside of Deontay Wilder not being a good inside fighter and sort of just getting hit with too much clean punches. When Tyson Fury worried about that right hand, he respects him. If you got power and he know that you can hurt him, that changes the way that he kind of like goes at you in a sense.
Your approaches you get. Yeah. I think that's what it was. But like I said also earlier, I think Francis Ngannou over those first few rounds, whatever it was, seeing what was happening with the jabs and things like that, and then saying, hey man, if I could just get through these jabs, then I'll be able to throw. And if I throw, then I could land or do something. You know what I'm saying? And that's what ended up happening. He was landing some of those shots, and that kind of like got it to where he was, able to do things. Now, the other thing too is that I think in that first half of that fight, or the first few rounds, he was the one that was trying to make himself be more active than Tyson Fury. And after the knockdown, you kind of like seen, Ngannou kind of like lean away from that strategy. And I think that's what kind of like hindered him in that second half of the fight, because you really didn't see that much activity from him after he was able to score that knockdown.
You mean once he got tired? You mean once he got tired, DR?
Yeah, he did get tired. Yeah, he surely did get tired, but
his endurance was good though. It was good enough. Right. Like it was better than Deontay Wilder's in a couple of them fights now.
Yeah, hey, he said, shout out to Sid, man, in the building for the UK. He said Fury even gave Ngannou a dirty elbow shot, but Ngannou looked at him like, fool, that's breakfast for me, right? He probably said like he's like it was in the clip. You motherfucker, you gave me this elbow like I can't eat this elbow. He tried to hit him with a right hand or a right hook, and it ended up going like this, and it ended up grazing Francis Ngannou, man. And I'm like, man, Ngannou, like, said, man, that ain't gonna face me, motherfucker. Like, it was just wild, man. But yeah, I mean, I just think, after that knockdown, he kind of like was really going for the gusto, so to speak, as far as like trying to land a big shot instead of setting up that shot or using the activity that he was doing in those first few rounds in order to get another knockdown. That could have been really key for him right there, in order to, be more successful, in the tail end of the fight. I wanted to go back to them scorecards and like that second half of the fight, and I'm looking at these scores and I'm seeing that Ngannou only won like a majority of the second half of the fight on one scorecard. And even with that one was the one where, even Fury got a 95-94 score, but in the other one, it was like they said that Ngannou was the one that had, the first half of the fight or had the advantage of the first half of the fight. You know what I'm saying? What you got on that real quick?
Now, we definitely know that Fury losing that fight wasn't going to be in the cards. I'm saying it was a good fight, but Fury losing that fight wasn't going to be in the cards because there's too much money to be made with Fury and Usyk already in the plans, and they already planning it to happen in the same spot.
Mm. Yeah. There was too much into that. Like I was saying yesterday, man, Usyk was signed with that Skills Challenge Promotions there, based over in the, area or Riyadh. And they were like, man, Undisputed. They were like, man, we can't mess with Undisputed. Even though this, man, they could have just made this exhibition and that wouldn't have mattered or anything like that. But no, they wanted to push for this to be an actual fight, for it to be 10 rounds. And, with it being in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, they could, approve for fights like that to happen, almost like, back in the days in Mexico when, Julio Cesar Chavez was like 57-0 fighting a guy that was like 0-1 or had their pro debut. Like, but this is the same thing that I guess was happening here. I mean, it's like not much different than, like I said, with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. They were able to, approve that fight in the Nevada State Athletic Commission. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Steph here in the building. What he said here. I couldn't stop laughing the whole time, but was mildly impressed with Francis' footwork. I didn't know he could do all that. His wrestling skills were on point too. Put Fury on Front Street. Yeah, I mean, like I said, with Fury being there at 277 pounds, okay, yeah, that's an advantage against the guys like a Deontay Wilder, against a against a Dylan White, against somebody that's much smaller than him or whatever it is. Like I said, Deontay Wilder is usually around there at like 230. 230 or whatever it is. Well, 230 is like the biggest that Deontay Wilder has been. It's like 230, 235. But when you're going up against, somebody that's like 240 or 250 or something like that, maybe you're not able to, get away with that type of stuff depending on, how they're built. And with Francis Ngannou being there at 272 pounds, 6'4", 6'5", 272, you ain't moving them around like that. You ain't moving someone built, someone built like that. You ain't moving them around like that.
You know who is built like that, but I think won't be able to do that? Joshua wouldn't be able to do that because I don't think Joshua's base is as good as Ngannou's.
His base might not be, but the thing about it is, if you want to try to get on the inside of Anthony Joshua, that uppercut may be a problem for Tyson Fury. Like, you would have to be that. The uppercut is like the one of the better punches that Anthony Joshua has in his repertoire.
That's true. That's true.
So the thing about Tyson Fury would have to be, he would have to make sure that he's able to tie up the hands of Anthony Joshua if they ever fight. He has to make sure they tie him up, because if not, you're really going to be in an issue there. Because like I said, I think the uppercut is probably the most effective punch against someone like Tyson Fury, because of how much he leans forward without having a good base on his lower body. You know what I'm saying? There's that on that. But like Steph was saying in reference to Ngannou's footwork, right? Like you seem like there, even when it seemed like, okay, you know what, I'm Tyson Fury. Yeah, I'm throwing the left jab and I'm doing this, and I'm not, early, I'm not really successful with throwing the left jab and then coming around with the right. Let's see what happens here when I try to, switch it up to southpaw and I start throwing the right jab and, coming around with the right hook, or, throwing the left as far as like my power hand. Francis Ngannou was switching up to southpaw too. So he was able to, kind of like throw things off, or I guess throw the timing off a little bit early there with Tyson Fury. So that was like, kind of, wow. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Yeah, he said Fury would do better if he turns it on, and he never did. He stopped throwing punches entirely. Yeah, there was a number of instances where you kind of like seen no punches being thrown there from Tyson Fury. He was just, doing the feints and, shimmying and all that type of stuff, man. But he wasn't, really throwing punches like that. So I kind of like was, at least disappointed in that particular sense. I thought he would do something, either with activity or, that strategy of trying to lean on him. That didn't work. So you would have had to try to, outwork him with activity. But I said this yesterday, that reach advantage that I thought that he would have against Francis Ngannou wasn't that much of a reach advantage. It was only like, you said like 85 to 83 as far as like the reach. So he couldn't really, work on that and be consistent on that to kind of wear down Francis Ngannou, man. All right, we got a newcomer in the building, Mackinland. What's going on with you, man, in the boxing source? Francis, he wants all the smoke. He just beat the greatest heavyweight boxer of this generation. Who should be next, Joshua or Wilder? Man. Now we've had like a couple of MMA folks kind of talk about, this thing here with Francis Ngannou and saying that, this. Who was it? Ariel Helwani saying that this version of Francis Ngannou would defeat Deontay Wilder, Dylan White, Derek Chisora, that type of thing, or naming the opponents for Tyson Fury. I was like, oh, come on, man. We can't necessarily do that, man. We ain't doing that. But I was saying yesterday that if they were going to make another fight like this, as far as like, the whole Riyadh season and having this crossover type of thing, that Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua would be those two, highly considered candidates there to be the next fight for Francis Ngannou. And that particular clip that I had there with Ngannou is part of the interview that he had after the fight that's on this channel, right? And at the time that I had viewed that thing on YouTube, it was premiered like around 7 to 8 hours ago. It was already at over 550,000 views. So that thing, probably was like at one point like trending high. Like you could see like the hashtags on social media for Fury and Ngannou was trending high, because of what happened with this result. And with that being said, you're going to have a lot of interest in having Ngannou be in another boxing fight. Now, if it's Francis Ngannou versus Deontay Wilder, you would have, power versus power. Some, folks saying that Deontay Wilder has like the hardest punch in boxing. And then you would have, Francis Ngannou saying that, he probably has the hardest punch overall or something like that. So that would be, that would be big. That would garner a lot of interest too, right? But I said this yesterday. Joshua's still the cash cow of the heavyweight division. And if you had a fight with Ngannou and Anthony Joshua, that would go crazy as far as like worldwide interest. I think it would go crazy if they did something like that. But it just remains to be seen how that's going to go. I think it was Wilder that was also considered as a potential opponent there for Francis Ngannou, before this whole thing with Fury and Ngannou kind of like came official. So Wilder's still in the mix as far as like a potential opponent there for Francis Ngannou. I've heard from I've heard some stuff in reference to the World Boxing Council talking about they would have Francis Ngannou. They better not put Francis Ngannou in the rankings in the top 15 of the WBC rankings. But hey, money talks, man. Money talks, and if you have Francis Ngannou there in the top 10 of the WBC rankings, then they probably have him listed in another fight. You know what I'm saying, man?
He a fan of Anthony Joshua. That's why he's saying he the cash cow.
No, I'm saying that because that's what's actually happening. Sponsorships, overall interest, all across the board. So it's basically Joshua. That's still the case. I mean, it's not. I'm telling you, it's not Tyson Fury. It's definitely not Alexander Usyk, and it's not Deontay Wilder. It's Anthony Joshua. Still at this particular point, crazy, but that's still the thing. You know what I'm saying? So here's the thing: if it's not Joshua, then who? That's
Wilder.
Nope, it's not. It's not. And the numbers show that. I mean, the numbers show that. Like, so I mean, the thing, no, it's not. I'm telling you right now, it's not. It's not. Because if it was, then you would see that. Oh, it's definitely not the Ruiz, because Ruiz. See, if it was either one of those fighters, if it was either Wilder or Ruiz, one of those two, they would have fought already. But we've seen there, at least real quick, with Andy Ruiz, he's saying that he's asking for such and such for a fight against Deontay Wilder, whether it's 10 million or 5 million or whatever it is. Nah, that ain't gonna work for that. And that ain't gonna work for Deontay Wilder. Like even with that guarantee, like his guarantees that he's asking for. If he was that guy, he would be able to get those guarantees like that. But
everybody getting paid less now, though, right?
Is Canelo getting paid less?
But Canelo getting that over 3 fights or something like that?
No, it's basically
per fight.
Pretty much per fight. Like it's like if it's anything lower than 50, it's 40. That's about as low as it goes per fight. So yeah. So it's basically Canelo, Joshua, and then everything else. Yeah, Ruiz, man. Ruiz takes the L as far as like business when it comes to the heavyweights, man. Like he asked for so much money against Deontay Wilder. He asked for so much money against Tyson Fury. He blew that too. So he pretty much holds the L, man. He could have already had a fight with one of those guys, but he's like, no, man, I want this much money and that much money. Whether it's his father talking or him talking, like he's pretty much like ruined that. Oh, shout out to Macklin in the building here, man. He said the heavyweight ain't that stacked. There's top 5, man. I mean, you got Fury, Usyk, Joshua, Wilder.
Juggernaut got knocked off out of that 5th position.
Yep. So you got our boy, man, Zhilei Zhang. Zhilei Zhang is at number 5, man. Zhilei Zhang up there, number 5.
Yeah, now, you probably got to put him at number 5.
Yeah, but here's something too, right? What would you think about a fight between Deontay Wilder and Zhilei Zhang?
It's gonna be exactly like Duopa. But Zhang is a little bit more slicker, even though he flat-footed. He sort of like, he ain't like Ruiz, but he's sort of like Ruiz in that his hands move fluidly. He throw his hands fluidly.
Like he's kind of tricky as a southpaw, man. He's kind of tricky as a southpaw,
But he get hit too much. So
right.
All I'm saying is Deontay Wilder will hit him multiple times, and him standing up to that punch 5 times, I don't see it. Now Wilder is compromised I feel like neurologically, I ain't trying to like write him off of that because that's my boy and I support him. But I'm just saying with the Fury glove gate and all that stuff and the dent in his head and stuff, every time he get hit on that side of his head or anything, he always, you can tell, is like them concussive symptoms. So that's the only thing I'm worried about for Wilder.
The other thing too with what Wilder is, man, ever since since those fights with Fury, he's only had that one round. So
exactly.
I don't know where he's at this particular point of his career, as far as like how he's going to be able to do rounds and get in, as far as like like you said, taking punches or moving around the ring and that type of stuff. Like how would he fare in that instance? That's why I wanted to see him in something against like Andy Ruiz, because Andy Ruiz is somebody that kind of like throws a lot of shots but takes a lot of shots as well, and it would be something where I would think that Wilder would be able to get some rounds in, work on a few things here and there. So that's why I wanted to see that type of a fight. But Ruiz, man, I'm telling you, he was asking for so much money, man. He was definitely asking for too much money. Itself said like he should have took any bag that Wilder offered. They split a bag at the end of the day. Yeah, man. They pretty much split a bag at the end of the day. And of course, we know what's happening with the whole thing with the Showtime sports thing. So you only got like 1 or 2 pay-per-views under Showtime Sports right now for this year. So that means where's Wilder going to be at? Now, I said that he could have been, possibly part of that Skills Challenge Promotions thing too, but now I don't know. I'm not sure. So, we got to see what happens with that. But yeah, back to the thing there with Fury and Ngannou, man. I did have like one of those questions of, was this performance by Tyson Fury, does it put a black eye on the sport of boxing? I mean, I don't know about all that, but I think, given, his status as like, a heavyweight in the heavyweight division where, some folks will say he's number 1, some will say he's number 2. And so he's fighting a guy that's in his first professional boxing match that, what I said, hadn't really been in as part in combat sports for about 1.5 years or so in Francis Ngannou. And this was what Francis Ngannou was able to do, regardless of what condition Tyson Fury was in. Yeah, that does hurt a bit. But does that mean that boxing loses a whole bunch of points for this to happen, where Tyson Fury was like real close to losing the fight? And I don't know. The thing that I'm kind of concerned about too is, and this is twofold. Like you had the whole thing about Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk fighting for the undisputed championship, and they were talking about, it's going to happen on December 23rd. Right after that fight, I said, ain't no way that that fight's happening December 23rd or whatever it was. That wasn't happening. And now we've had reports released saying that no, it's going to be in January or February. Yeah, we're going to see about that, because on two things that happened. One, Tyson Fury got cut on the top part of his head. 2, he had a little bit of a welt in his eye. So he even with the thing as far as like him having a rest period and then trying to get back into the gym, I don't think it's gonna. I just really don't see that being or taking place in like January or February, man. Yeah, man. He said you should look at Ngannou's backstory. He started doing boxing before MMA and had 3 amateur bouts, but switched to MMA. Yeah, I mean, he did say that he had, his dream of saying that he wanted to be in a boxing ring or a professional boxing ring. But they said they don't have Ngannou's bouts, amateur bouts listed, or at least it's not on box records of some sort. I'm gonna have to get on Gray for that. If he had 3 amateur boxing bouts, then I'm calling out Gray and I'm saying, hey, you need to find out what those 3 amateur bouts was and get the results and put it on box rec, because they were supposed to be on there. But outside of that, I mean, I guess, that kind of like was, where he had, a little bit of a, striking background, while being in combat sports and MMA, before, having this thing here where he's able to be in a boxing ring against Tyson Fury. So, but yeah, as far as like that fight between Fury and Usyk, I know that they had a face off after the fight. Of course, Usyk was there and everything like that. Man, I don't see that fight happening in December. I just don't see Fury Usyk in December. And the thing that I posted on my personal page on Facebook, I said the results of this fight between Fury and Ngannou is going to get much more buzz than anything that happens between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. I'm calling it. Shout out to Showtime, the guy in the building. What's happening with you, man? What's happening? Academic, you had something?
Yeah. So the first thing you said, does it put a black eye on boxing because Ngannou performed so well? I think just like the last comment that you put up from the guy, there's no way that someone who performs like that was not chiseled by fire in some form. Like the way he had, like his, what I call it, his temperament, his ability to be composed, knowing when to throw them big shots. That just don't happen. That just doesn't just happen. This ain't even like who would go in the ring and throw like wild shots and then land them. I ain't even talking about when somebody hurt. Like, imagine a boxer who would just go in the ring and just throw wild shots like they at Rock and Jock or something. This was not him. He knew when to open up and he knew when to block, like high guard that was very difficult for Fury to get in. Like you ain't even see many jabs that just hit him straight on the top of his head, like in between the guard and stuff, because he was so responsive. That just doesn't happen. So no, it doesn't put a black eye on the sport of boxing, because the law of averages, you have crossover fights. Yeah, the majority of the fights are going to be a whitewash from the boxer, but there are going to have to be some people that come in and beat, that not even gonna say beat and come close to the boxer. It's no different than Anderson the Spider Silva when he got knocked down by which one did he get knocked down by? One of the Paul boys.
Yeah, one of them joints, man.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is Jake Paul was a novice compared to him, but he still came in and knocked him down. And the fight was slow to me, but then he still landed that shot, and then that kind of changed the end of the fight, and then they coasted, and then the fight ended. It happens, especially if you got power.
And that's the thing about it. And I think it was who it was here. Guy Mackin said it was kickboxing that he had amateur fights in. But he still, had that ability, as a striker. He still had the striker ability. So, with that's kind of like says like, hey, I mean, you still got to watch out for that. Yeah, like you still got to watch out for that there as a fighter, regardless of what's going on. But the thing also, like you said, well, you brought up with Jake Paul, like he had the fight with Anderson Silva, last year. He also had, those fights with Tyron Woodley, or whatever it was, and he was able to have that, knockout over Tyron Woodley, regardless of the situation. But he still, you still have that instance where, some of those guys, even though they're in MMA, they may not have that type of or that much of a background in striking like that. So if you're someone like, as Mackin kind of brought up, if you're a guy that, was a ground guy, like, tries to be there with like a wrestling background or, ground work, then you might not have that, ability to, strike with, good accuracy or, have that type of hand movement, to block, to block shots like that. But if you do have like a kickboxing background like Francis Ngannou has, then you may have that, ability to, put those hands up and, know that stuff, because you were learning that as you're training on your way, to building up your MMA career. So, that's the thing about it. He also says like styles make fights. Being unorthodox is an advantage. Tyson Fury did bring that up after the fight, immediately after the fight, that Francis Ngannou was an unorthodox fighter. Like he wasn't really. He was surprised with the some of the movements that Francis Ngannou was doing. Like I said, with the footwork, being able to switch from orthodox to southpaw, having his lead foot ahead of Tyson Fury, like those things are you can't teach that all off the bat. You gotta know that type of stuff. So that's the thing about it. So yeah, and also a good point. Yeah, Francis it's pretty much around his prime, and the MMA fighters that Jake fought were pretty much like in their 40s, man, too. So yeah, they ain't at the top of their game, by a long shot. You know what I'm saying? So you did have that, but
I got a question.
All right.
So in the chat yesterday, somebody said that they thought the fight was rigged by the way that Fury sort of didn't take advantage of the skills that he normally could take advantage of against fighters. What do you think about that?
I mean, I wouldn't say like rigged, but I said that this Fury ain't like a Fury that usually like prepares for a boxing fight, in that like his reflexes, so to speak, and how he reacts to certain things, like it wasn't necessarily there. Like if you say like, okay, he didn't really like put up much of an effort or something like that, maybe that's what they say. But for me, like I said, in the first half of the fight, there were a number of times where I just felt like Fury was off, especially when he was throwing the follow-up hand, like the right hand after throwing the left jab. Like there were a lot of times when he was just throwing a jab, and then coming across with the right, and he would be like way off. Like he would be, he would overshoot his target or whatever it was. And I just thought that was just something where you're not in the gym at a regular basis to kind of like sharpen up those type of things. That's what I kind of like saw there from Tyson Fury. Right. Mac says that he was petrified after the knockdown. He never pulled the trigger. I mean, that goes into, what Boxing Academic said in reference to the power from Francis Ngannou. He respected the power from Francis Ngannou, man. He didn't think that Francis Ngannou would be able to do what he did in that instance. So
and then look at the fight. I'm sorry, JR. Look at the fight with Wilder. The times where Wilder competed or won rounds is when he used the hand fighting. Tyson Fury was a totally different fighter when Wilder did the hand fighting. I'm sorry, JR.
Yeah, there's that. But also, the thing with Wilder too, and I think it was the second fight. I think it was the second fight, right? In the first few rounds of the second fight, I think it was the second fight, where you had Wilder, he kind of like threw the jab and mixed things up and jab to the body and that type of thing. But when it came up with the right hand, it was almost like Fury kind of seen that right hand coming. So he was pretty much putting up his left hand, to catch what was going on. So with that, you kind of like say, okay, this is what I know is coming from Deontay Wilder. So I know that I have to do this, when he starts something up. So when you kind of like study your fighter and you're training and you're preparing to fight, someone like Deontay Wilder, then yeah, you're gonna be ready for something like that. But if you're fighting someone like Francis Ngannou that ain't really had a fight, you don't think really has that type of skill as far as like boxing is concerned, then you ain't really gonna be worried about that all too tough, man. Yeah. Also, Max says like he knew how to use his clinch and lean Juan Wilder to tire him out. He couldn't do none of that with Francis. He is used to grappling and is a solid 275 pounds. That's exactly what I was saying, man. He's a solid 275, 272. This is not a guy that's 230 or so pounds. at his heaviest was Deontay Wilder at like 230 something pounds.
And the heaviest and slowest. Did you see that boy squat or clean him when he was on his back? Did you see him like squat him?
Oh no.
I'm saying when Fury was leaning on him, and Ngannou like was in the corner, in one of the corners, and like he leaned up real high and then pretty much got Fury off of him. Like pure power.
I didn't think it was like off his feet, but I thought he like shifted him over and like put him over to the corner. Like they were like close to the ropes at one side.
That's a separate one that I'm talking about. But I know what you're talking about. He sort of like Olayed him in a sense, right?
Word.
Yeah, the one I'm talking, he squatted him in a sense when Fury was trying to lean on him. And it looked so like powerful.
Yeah, but that goes into what we were saying, man, that this is a solid 270 plus from Francis Ngannou, man. So it wasn't like Tyson Fury could get away with something like that. And he probably, I think he probably banked on that, but it just didn't work for him, man. Definitely didn't work for him. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just something to me where, this is gonna, bring a lot of buzz, towards, what's happening with Francis Ngannou. And I think a lot of people will be really interested to, see what happens next with him, man. I think that's what's going to be the thing with Francis Ngannou. Like, where is he going to go next? But, how they say the thing in reference to like the comparison with MMA and boxing when it comes to fight purses. So, once he gets that, money coming from boxing, it's like, hey, what's he going to do here for his next fight? Because, it's going to be crazy as far as like who would be for his next fight. So it's like, why would he go back to, mixed martial arts if if he ain't going to be pulling anywhere near the persons that he could pull, here for boxing? I mean, folks talk about maybe the biggest fight in MMA for him is John Jones or something like that. But are you going to get that type of money fighting John Jones in comparison to fighting a Deontay Wilder or fighting an Anthony Joshua? Nah, man. Nah, I don't see it. So, I mean, I really like to see what happens with that. But, for Tyson Fury, man, he's kind of taking the brunt of the slander, I guess, with what's happened here. And, he does have a fight upcoming with Alexander Usyk, like I said. And, Usyk is, I don't know, man. I think Usyk is kind of like, licking his fingers, like saying, man, oh, this is barbecue chicken alert, baby.
And why are you saying that?
Because I think with the overall skill level of Usyk and how he's able to move around the ring or something like that, that he'll be able to try to take advantage of all the mistakes that Fury does, regardless of, even with Tyson Fury at the supposed like top of his game, you can still see the flaws that he has there that makes him vulnerable to losing to any guy that's like at the top level in the heavyweight division. You know what I'm saying? So, basically that's what we have with that.
The thing about that is Usyk can run, but he ain't gonna be able to hide. He can run and pepper him and go across the ring. Now, what's gonna really tell us how good can Fury cut the ring off and lean on him? Because that should be the beginning, the middle, and the end of Fury's plan. Lean on him, throw body shots, lean on him, hit him with the little elbow shot, the loving elbow shot, like lean on him, get him tired, like maul him, treat him like a little boy, like what he is, compared to you, Tyson Fury.
Yeah, like there, I mean, you would be able to use that 6'9" frame or whatever it is. That would be, back to, what you're used to doing. Now, if you're gonna be able to use that to your advantage, that's on you, there, Tyson Fury. But I think something there with Alexander Usyk says that he's been watching everything that Fury has been doing over the past few years, everything like that. Yeah, Mackin says a real MVP here is Mike Tyson. He helped Francis's confidence and train him. Like I did have a little segment. I said something in reference to Mike Tyson. He said, "Hey, luck, Francis, luck. I was happy with your performance. I thought you won the fight. You did what you had to do against Tyson Fury, and you did your best. You did your best. I thought you won the fight." But we did have that. But also, like I said, you had Dewey Cooper. That's been in there over in Vegas area. That trained with Francis Ngannou too. So there's that. Yeah, this was probably the biggest upset since Douglas Tyson. Yeah, man. But this would have blown away that. This would have blown away that from by astronomical standards, man. Because at least with Buster Douglas, you knew with Buster Douglas he had a number of good experiences there in the boxing ring. It was just that at that time he had like a little bit of a funk or something like that, so to speak. But he was able to perform at his absolute best there against Mike Tyson. So you did have that. But yeah, that was like mainly what I had in reference to that event. We definitely will have more, I guess, coming up. I hope the WBC doesn't put Francis Ngannou in the top 15. They better not put Francis Ngannou in the top 15. That would be the wildest thing ever, man. After one professional fight, they would put Francis Ngannou in the top 15 of the WBC rankings there.
And what would that do? What would that mean? Who would he fight next to catapult?
Ammo anyway. Well, one, that's money. But two, it would mean that, one, he would have to, I guess, be in the clean boxing program. But he would probably be able to qualify to fight anyone in the top 15. And if he, by any chance, fought Tyson Fury again, it would put the WBC title on the line. So that would be the whole gist of that what's happening there, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. Yeah, Buster's mom died before the fight, so yeah, he did train like a maniac and run up to the fight. Where they had that what was it? That 30 for 30. There where it showed the thing where Buster Douglas was, how he was preparing for that fight. So yeah, man. So you did also have that going down. But yeah, real quick though, wanted to also touch on other action that happened. Top of the bill in the zone card in Mexico, world title bout, super featherweight title, WBC, O'Shaquie Foster against Eduardo Hernandez. Man, just off the rip, I thought I would have seen much better off of O'Shaquie Foster in this particular instance, because even though Eduardo Hernandez came in there with a record of 34 and won with 31 wins by way of knockout, pretty much all of those fights that he had were in Mexico. There were only like 2 fights maybe that Eduardo had that was in the U.S., right? And one of those was his long loss to Roger Gutierrez, where he got knocked out in the first round. But O'Shaquie just pretty much was fighting like a boxer, was allowing Eduardo Hernandez to come forward. He was O'Shaquie Foster was trying to rely on his defense to really do something there against Hernandez, and kind of work as a counterpuncher. And while some of the time it looked like he was being successful with that, being in Mexico, that ain't gonna work in reference to the crowd, and it definitely didn't work in reference to the judges, because them judges, man, especially one of them, was really, really on some. He was really on some other stuff, boy. Definitely on some other stuff. He pretty much pre-filled out the scorecard, before the fight even started to look like. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But going into that, I just felt like Foster wasn't really doing what he needed to do for the majority of the first half of that fight. Just waited until rounds 5 and 6, where he was a little bit more successful, with his offense, especially when he switched over from orthodox to southpaw. Like he was originally, starting off, as a southpaw, and the thing about it was like he had to, be a little bit more successful on that, and then in the tail end of the fights in round 10 and then in round 11, you seen that he was the aggressor because like Hernandez, like around round 9 and 10, he started to fight off of his back foot. Like he wasn't, really throwing much at all. So you kind of like seen Foster in his front foot for the majority of that 10th round. And then the 11th round, like in that first minute of the 11th round, he was able to seriously hurt Hernandez and be able to wail in on him. And then Hernandez was able to come back a little bit and try to get, some momentum back. And then, Foster got him once again. And then Hernandez turned his back on Foster, right? And that should have at least, been like some type of a 10 count, or they should have waved something. Because at least, Hernandez's corner was like really close, like stopping the bout at that time. But then, like I said, Hernandez had turned his back, and I was like, the referee ain't do nothing to do, to say anything in reference to that. But Hernandez was able to get through that particular round. They say, like, folks talk about that's like round of the year. But then in the 12th round, Foster was able to hurt him once again, score, at least one knockdown, and then he scored another knockdown. And when it looked like it was like under 30 seconds left in the fight, that's when the referee stepped in and stopped the bout for O'Shaquie Foster to get the win. And he does keep the belt, the WBC title, but them scorecards was crazy. Scorecards was crazy. Up until that last round, you had scorecards of 107-102 in favor of Hernandez, 106-103 in favor of Foster, and this is the one that had me wilding, 110-99 in favor of Eduardo Hernandez. So up to the 12th round, one judge had all 11 rounds in favor of Eduardo Rocky Hernandez. That was the wildest thing I've seen. Like, come on, yo. I'm like, come on, man. That was just, that was madness. That was absolute madness there, man. That was absolute madness. But, props to O'Shaquie Foster for getting this win. Stoppage win, keeps the title. And I know that he said that he wants to get the winner of that fight that's happening on Saturday there, as Joe Cordina is supposed to be fighting and defending his IBF belt against Edward Vasquez. But, since Foster had, won a vacant title when he had beat Ray Vargas, earlier this year, February of this year, he has to have like 2 consecutive mandatory challenges. This was one of them, and then you're going to have another one here soon after, but you got to get the winner of Vicente versus Yakubov whenever that's scheduled. So you won't have a unification there in 130 as of yet. You're going to have to wait that out. But big ups to O'Shaquie Foster for getting this win. But, they were ready to commit a whole full-scale robbery in that fight with them scorecards, man. That was wild, man. That was wild. I was going to see if Academic had caught that joint or not. I'm not sure if he did. But yeah, I had to give my take on that one, because like with Foster, man, like I'm kind of like a Foster fan. He's there trained by Bobby Benton, who also trains Regis Prograis. They both, Foster and Prograis have been, training here. Of course, Prograis is preparing for his fight against Devin Haney. But yeah, he almost like lost the belt. If that fight went through the scorecards, he would have easily lost the belt, man. It would have been a split decision. And think about that too, is with it being a mandatory, I don't think you get a immediate rematch. You don't get a rematch, so if he would have lost that fight, he would have been out of it. He would have had to wait for a good little while to try to get that title back. So props to him for getting that salvage victory there, man. Props to him for getting that and to keep that WBC title. But definitely had to chime in on that. That was just something there that was, I just felt like that was wild. That it almost came to a real bad decision that would have been in the favor of Rocky Hernandez there in that particular instance, man. But yeah, that's it for the action there in October, man. We're gonna be moving into November here in the boxing circles, man. So we just looking ahead to what's going down on that. I know that we had the fights that were on Friday in Orlando. Where Amanda Serrano was able to score a victory, a decision victory there. With her win over Delina Ramos, 12 rounds, 3-minute rounds, and it went the full 12, man. Went the full 12. But we'll see what happens with that. And know that there's a number of fighters that are like in support of having that championship 12 round, 3-minute rounds there. But that remains to be seen. We're gonna see what happens with that, because usually with more rounds and more minutes comes more money that's going to be requested from those fighters. And if you ain't putting butts in the seats, shoot, I mean, boxing already has a problem with having, people watching these fights, for these fighters, request this much money. So now you're going to have this going down. And I don't know, man. Definitely don't know about how far that's going to go, but we'll see what that entails here in the future. But you do have that. You don't really have that much other action that's going down here. Like I said, I mean, that Joe Cordina fight is supposed to be coming up next Saturday, but outside of that, there's not much else going on. Only thing that I see coming up is Shakur Stevenson versus Edwin De Los Santos there in November. But outside of that, really not that much action here. We're gonna see what's going on with the news circles and all of that. We are posting up some clips there. I had an interview with Coach Kenny Ellis, of course. They're from Upton Gym in Baltimore. So I'll be posting some clips here on YouTube in reference to all of that. But outside of that, that's pretty much what I got. Box Academic, you got anything here before I roll out?
No, that's it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for jumping in here. And thanks for all the guests that, were able to hit the live on this podcast. Hopefully you like the content, hit the like button on here, to show appreciation. We would thank y'all for doing that. We'll get right back at it here next week. We'll try to have the midweek report as well, as far as like what's going on in the sport of boxing. But until next time, folks, like I say, point of boxing, hit is not get hit. Not a standard trade. On that note, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.